Not giving me a written contract? Sure. Long-time lurker, first-time poster, on phone, not American. This happened to my partner, but I'll try to tell it as if it's my own story for better reading experience. I worked at a small coffee shop as a barista. On the first day I told my boss, the owner, that I would like to sign a written contract, so that it's less likely to create conflicts about the working terms and conditions. He said I'd give you a written contract when you've passed probation. Okay, maybe he's environmentally friendly and wanted to save a tree or something. I asked if there would be more day offs after probation. He said yeah, 1 more day off per month. 3 months gone by, which normally would mean pass probation. I asked again for the offs. He said you must have been mistaken. It was unpaid public holidays before 3 months, but now they are paid public holidays, so it equals to 1 more off per month. Firstly, paid public holidays after 3 months of employment is a law in my place. It isn't some perks that he generously granted me, nor something that anyone in the workforce wouldn't know. Secondly, I asked him for the number of day offs, not the number of other kinds of rest days. The context in the conversation was entirely different. I mean, if he also counted annual leaves, PTO in my place, or sick leaves, that number could have pumped way up. I felt like he tricked me, but I couldn't prove that because anything he promised were only words. The one thing that made me decide to leave the place was that in COVID times, if a staff is tested positive, obviously the shop should close. Other staffs get tested, and get professionals to deep clean the shop. But no. My boss decided to do none of that. A colleague got COVID, we were required to operate as usual, hiding the fact that we have a COVID-positive staff from customers that were entering and drinking our products. I was even required to clean the shop with the usual apparatus. As a non-professional COVID cleaner, and a very likely COVID-positive patient, here comes the malicious compliance. In my place, if you passed probation, normally after 3 months as aforementioned, you need 4 weeks notice. Within probation period 1 week is enough. I handed in my letter. Boss said I needed to stay 4 weeks, so that he could find a replacement and have me train my successor, because normally that's how it works. I said no. You promised me a signed contract after probation, you didn't give me one. My offer wasn't reviewed, didn't get a raise, you didn't even tell me I passed probation. Thanks for not giving me that written contract, I'm gonna leave in a week. He tried to argue, but no legit points came out of him. The fallout, after I told him I quit, another barista also handed in his resignation letter. He needed 4 weeks though, and also a kitchen staff. My replacement sucks so much that he has given up teaching. The coffee shop has lost all staffs that can make good coffee, along with the skills that we carry.
Now to the comments. A tale as old as time, boss tries to screw staff, ends up screwing himself.
The tale is so old that time itself is sick of shitty bosses lol.
Paid public holidays after 3 months of employment is a law in my place. It isn't some perks that he generously granted me. People will still try to sell you such things. When my wife took a job quite a while ago, she was promised a raise starting the following year. Sounds good, right? No, it's just that the minimum wage was set to rise at the beginning of the next year, so they had to bump up her wages from the old minimum to the new minimum by law, but they still tried to pass it off as a perk. Or people labeling their food as no preservatives, as mandated by law, which is pretty common in Germany.
Also in Germany, Uber advertising that they're using professional drivers, yet, cause the courts decided you weren't allowed not to.
You have professional drivers. He got roasted. You put him in the espresso lane to justice. He didn't even have the decency to treat you like a human being. When I started, I thought this would be funny.
At least now OP will hit the grounds running.
I flat out told employers before that a signed contract comes before labor starts. Doesn't matter how they classify it, doesn't matter what they call it, doesn't matter how they complain. If I'm doing work, then it starts with me having a contract or cash in my hand, otherwise, the work isn't happening.
As far as I'm aware, this is a legal requirement in my country. If there's a probation period, it's written into the contract you sign that before you do any work.
Reminds me of a job I had years ago. I was cleaning offices and the like. My contract stated that only 1 day notice had to be given by both parties, which is illegal here. At some point the supervisor wanted me to change my daily route, which would have meant driving all over town in my own car and spending a quarter of my wage on gas alone. I said I'd do it if I got a company car or reimbursement for the gas, otherwise I wouldn't do it. She said that wasn't possible, so I refused. Next day the big boss came into the office and tried to pressure me to agree. So, I took my uniform off right in front of him and told him I quit. He tried to argue that we had a contract. I reminded him of the 1 day notice and offered that he could take me to court if he felt that I was breaking the contract. Then I just turned around and left. Never heard from him again. The judge would have torn him apart for the contract alone, and I guess he knew. Telling this story still makes me grin. I can't imagine how tough it would be to want to leave a job and be compelled to work for 4 more weeks. In Canada, if I decide to quit a job, the most they will get from me is a swirl of dust as I open the door on my way out. I mean, what if the job is a hellhole with an abusive boss? No power on earth could make me stay there if I wanted out.
Key part is certainly not American. Some countries I know for sure have some interesting rulings around things like that. India is that way. I don't know the exact details, but like 30-60 days notice is very normal in my experience working with them. In the US, of course, it is very different. There is almost nothing that can compel you to work beyond the date you quit, and certainly not in an at-will state.
Every US state is at will. Some just have more protections than others. Would have posted a note to the health department about COVID staff. Man, awfully lenient to have given him a week at all. I would have quit over the phone and never looked back. Is this thing where people can be forced to stay working at a job when they want to quit a European thing? I've seen it in a few topics. I haven't heard about it here in the US. You're free to up and quit whenever you want, and with exceptions can just be fired whenever they want.
It's not only in Europe. I can at least say it's the same way for South American countries. You need to give notice that you are leaving, and stay there for a month or so depending on how long you've worked. You can also leave immediately, but then you might need to pay a big fine. The idea is to protect both businesses and workers. Businesses also have to give notice, normally more than the inverse.
That seems so strange. Why would you want to employ someone who doesn't even want to work there? What if you just sat around all day and didn't work? If you had no written contract at all, why do you even owe him the 1 week? I can't imagine working for anyone without some sort of written agreement. So why did you give 1 week? No contract, just walk the duck out, bro. I'm curious as to which country you're in. I've lived in different ones and I'd never ever work without a signed contract for anything.
Sounds like the UK to me, but I think most EU member nations have the same legal protections, so it's really hard to say.
Just walk out, lol? You don't have to give a week notice, you still manage to get scammed by your boss. So why the 1 week notice instead of today's my last day, and you don't have a contract saying otherwise? Bye bye. Treat your workers like crap, they will return the favor. Yep. Last day of probation, ask for the contract to sign. No contract, You accept that you failed probation and don't come back to work.
There should be a contract detailing probation period and requirements before starting day 1, day 2 at the latest.
OP, can you explain what you mean by my replacement sucks so much that he has given up teaching? Because it sounds like you have someone who has walked away from teaching, something that is happening a lot right now due to horrible working conditions and doesn't actually have anything to do with what the person is like as a worker. Completely off subject, I just wondered why it was even included.
I think they mean the boss has given up giving training to the new starter, rather than the profession of teaching.
This is how I interpreted it as when reading, we take context into account, the use of the word that indicates reasoning and not unrelated fact about previous job. This was continually happening in my old place of work. We didn't have contracts so that minimum hours wouldn't have to be adhered to, but when we left, we would literally just work the weekend, if we felt like it, and then left.